You're about to witness one of the most underrated vehicles on World of Tanks console, and hopefully you'll be interested to see the M46 Patton, the tier 9 American medium tank that is absolutely insane. And I really thought that this vehicle would be kind of mediocre to maybe good because it has the DPM, but this thing completely blew my expectations out the water, and I guess that it can only go up from here looking towards the M48 Patton. So I'm really looking forward to testing both of these vehicles out, and of course you're about to see this one in particular within the two replays that we have for today. Now the M46 is of course a tank that leads on from the Patton basically, or leads up to the Patton, the M48, and comes from the Pershing. The Pershing being a really good solid tier 8 tank, but this one more importantly being a very strong tier 9 medium, and that's because the DPM of this vehicle is outstanding, as well as the fact that the turret armor of this vehicle has been recently buffed, or at least buffed to the point where it's usable now and you can have some outstanding games. And this is the best game that I had. In fact, I don't think that this is the best game that I had, because the best game I had, the video footage corrupted. I think I had something like 7,000 damage with this vehicle. And of course, at the end of the game as well, within that video, or within that thing, my controller disconnected, so I then had to go away and then basically came back and I plugged it in, and then it basically blew the port on my computer, which was fantastic because my my recording device is also plugged into that same port, so it automatically cancelled the recording, which meant that I'm just left with a few corrupt files on the recording device now. So yeah, very disappointed with that, but regardless, this game is good enough to showcase as well, because it's a very close one to that game. And in fact, you're seeing here the power of being a medium tank with gun depression, because things like the Conqueror, although they're really strong heavy tanks, if you know the weak points of them, which are that cupola weak point, now granted, if you're on the same level as it, it can be so much harder to hit, but you can still have games where you're able to actually hit it. Now, the Conqueror here, I'm willing to take a shell off of him, and he actually bounces, which is something that you probably wouldn't have seen from the M46 Patton maybe a few months ago, because they recently buffed it. And you can see here with the APCR rounds, I'm sorry guys, I did decide to fire only APCR, so I've become a little bit of a tryhard. I was just trying to get as much damage and W8 as I possibly could, so I wanted to see how much of an impact the APCR rounds and firing premium can have on your games. And actually I think I'm going to do a video showcasing my stats before I started firing exclusive premium and after, to see if it does make that much of a difference that everyone goes on about. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one to see. And you're seeing here that we're bouncing rounds from heavy tanks with good pen, and this is something that you probably wouldn't see from a lot of vehicles. Now, you're about to witness one of the best things in World of Tanks, and that is when you permanently track someone. Now this IS-3, obviously I'm willing to take the hit from him, but he pulls back and he's now gonna get permanently tracked. He obviously doesn't realise that he's actually out in the open. With repairing his track initially earlier on, just a second ago, he's now out of repair kits, and regardless of taking a hit from the Conqueror, I'm still going to finish off this IS-3, since we can put multiple rounds into him and then deal with the Conqueror later on. So fantastic result there from that round. And then we do the exact same to the Carnarvon. Almost feels bad at this point, but at this stage in the game, it's just a case of just absolutely rinsing rounds through. You're seeing the damage that we can put out with this vehicle. Of course, we are using the small gun on the M46 Patton. This is not the top gun, which gets 390 alpha. It's the one that gets 240 and has better DPM. But I really enjoyed using both. The best game I've ever had in this vehicle was using the 390 alpha, so I guess you can maybe make an argument for both, and I would actually say that this one is probably a little bit more consistent, because you do get the opportunity to retrack opponents super quickly. And you can see here with a 4.3 second reload time, or 4.2 seconds there, you're able to constantly dish out damage all of the time. And this is something I find really, really important within the game, and it's the ability to actually retrack opponents and tracking opponents and just being a nuisance constantly. Whereas, yes, having the damage can really help out in some cases. Sometimes it's actually really nice to just be able to deal damage. The Borsig there does indeed have the 15 centimeter and just auto-aimed us, of course, and yeah, not particularly very fun. Then we get hit by the King Dragon firing HE for some reason. We do put a round into him and of course pen him as well, taking our damage total up to 6,000 with this round of World of Tanks, which in its own right is really, really good. There is of course the KPZ on the enemy team, who we do try and auto-aim, but I think the Barask round actually hit him first, even though our round would have hit him. But with this damage result, 6,018 damage, 1,818 assistance damage, 7,800 combined damage within this result, and then of course the GW Tiger, being the toxic piece of dirt that he is, decides to absolutely throw himself off the cliff, which is always good. Try and put good game, but Wargaming have removed the option to use the chat filter before the game ends, which is kind of annoying. But a really, really easy victory there, picking up 2,023 base experience with 6,018 damage done and 4 enemies taken out. So a really, really, really good result there for the M46 pattern. And when I was trying to go towards the M48 pattern, getting 12,899 base 8 XP within this game was really, really helpful. And of course you can see there we unlocked the Top Gun as well. Of course it's a mastery badge for 2,000 base, and a really, really good result in general in this vehicle. We then slide into the next game on Murovanka, and this is actually a round of World of Tanks that I genuinely didn't think would happen, because this map is a bit of a funny one. Now, there are some options that you can come away with really, really good results, and I'm not saying that you can't in medium tanks, but I do sometimes find in vehicles like the M46 pattern, because you don't have the armour, you can't poke around a lot of the corners, which means that you can end up kind of getting taken out pretty quickly if you do decide to kind of be more aggressive. And I'm quite an aggressive player in the way that I actually try and push forward in the games, so it can be very bad for me in general. But yeah, sometimes I get way too impatient. That's probably what ends up being my demise in a lot of the games that I do have. But regardless, we are going to try and make it work in this game, and obviously since it's featured on the channel, it probably does work. I'm going to spoil it for you there. But the key thing about Murovanka is not pushing over this ridge that we're currently at. This is a good starting position to kind of see how the game is developing, see where the enemy teams have got to, and especially when the majority of your heavy tanks are still sat in the base, yeah, you don't want to be pushing into the enemy heavies all too quickly. You kind of want to farm them from a position that's kind of best for you. Now, the enemy Oho is a vehicle that is kind of annoying to actually hit. The only real places at this current moment in time we can actually pen are the Cupola, which is slightly hard to hit from this sort of distances, and we are using the premium rounds already, so there's not really a lot more we can do. But what we can do is try and retrack the Oho in position, much like we did in the previous game, to the IS-3. So these are the sorts of things and opportunities that you want to be taking. If you can retrack and do damage, then that is perfect for you. The E75 looks like he's very aggressive, trying to come around that corner in front of all of the tanks that are sat here pre-aiming him. Not a good idea, but so far 933 damage done, which is only 4 shells, or maybe just slightly, or maybe 3, dependent on how lucky you get with the rolls, but yeah, in general 4, and then we can continually just pump out the damage. That's why I love these high kind of rate of fire guns that have a decent amount of damage. So for example, playing with something like that has 150 damage is a little bit disappointing in tier 9, but 150 damage maybe at tier 7 would be quite nice if you could dish out damage every, couple of seconds. 150 is really, really good, and it just allows you to open up a new avenue for your gameplay where you can get some assistance damage from tracking opponents that you may otherwise have not been able to do because you just cannot reload fast enough to retrack the opponent before they get behind cover. So that's what I think is always underrated in the game, is that Not only because you have an increased rate of fire, do you have a benefit of kind of getting the damage quicker, and often higher rate of fire guns are typically mean that you can do more damage, but they also allow you to get that assistance as well. So you're seeing here us just trying to get into a nice little position to hit the E75. He obviously fires there, which means it's basically curtains for him. We go for the lower plate, obviously hitting it. There's an E75 on the other side, as well as a Progetto who's on the enemy team, and he's pushing up quite aggressively. We're going to pull back behind the house. The King Dragon then decides he's going to come around as well, but he can't get the gun depression like we do. I think this gets 10 degrees. So yeah, more than enough to deal with most situations where you require on a hill. King Dragon obviously pushing up to try and get hold down, but we'll take the easy shot into the E75, which is kind of holding up our team. And that way we don't really have to aim an awful lot, and we can actually track the E75, although we somehow bounce off of the super angled back of the E75. Our teammates then realise that, oh, this tank isn't actually looking my way, so maybe I should come around that corner. It is indeed an Object 752, I believe, which is the autoloader, or maybe it is the 257, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, either way, the enemies get taken out and we end up coming out with a decent result. There are 3 enemies left alive on their team, which include the SU-130, it includes the artillery, who just managed to pen us, I believe, for 900, which is lovely, or it might have been a T-92 that just hit us and didn't pen. Either way, we lose literally 2/3 of our hit points to him. And we're now just going to go after this SU. We load a HE round, and we do decide to start penning, because with the HE of this vehicle, I believe you get in the region of about 300 alpha, or 320 alpha, which is nice. And at this point, we're just going after the WZ, who's YOLOing our teammates. Unfortunately, don't manage to get any damage on him apart from the 9 that we did, which was just purely from the HE round that obviously wasn't going to pen him. But we're now just going to get with the lighthouse in between us. I'm not sure if it's a Lorraine, which could be. It was in fact the GW Tiger, and we actually start penning both of them with these HE rounds, which are lovely. And maybe we'll be able to finish off the SU, and we do. So really, really good game in the M46 pattern, playing on a map that is maybe not the best for this vehicle, although, you know, with the ridgelines, maybe it is. But either way, coming out with 5,400 damage, 1,721 base experience, and 3 enemies taken out. And of course, nearly 5.9 thousand combined damage, or just over. And of course, blocking 710, and a mastery badge. So really, really good games in both the first and second replay. And of course, very, very salty about the fact that the best game got not recorded or corrupted or whatever. I might add in a screenshot now so you can actually see that it did happen and I'm not just making it up for the sake of it. But nonetheless, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and of course I really implore you to go out and play the M46 pattern line, because all of the vehicles, even the tier 7, the T20, the Pershing, the M46 pattern and the M48 pattern are fantastic in World of Tanks console. So yeah, really go out of your way and try them out. But thank you very much for watching this, and if you want to check out some of the other vehicles much like this, like the Leopard PTA, the other tier 9 medium tank from the German line, then I highly implore you to check out the video on the left, and on the right there will be the gameplay and tank reviews playlist with loads of vehicles from varying different tiers, and I hope I see you in one of those. Goodbye.